And then I did buy the Cricket food and Fluker's water gel. I ended up buying just some water crystals to expand myself, and it's much cheaper to buy water crystals that aren't pre-hydrated than it is to buy pre-hydrated food. And if you get the large ones, they last much longer and they don't dry out quite as fast as Fluker's water gel. I also ended up buying a screen with a little door in it, which is nice because you don't want to move your lights around very much. Shaking your lights around and just moving them shortens their lifespan, how long that they'll last. And so getting the screen lid with a little door in it was useful because I didn't have to lift up the lid to get to Freddy. I could just open the little door. And then I got him a little water dish that he didn't end up using, so I took it out. A lot of people would say keep a water dish at all times in the cage. Other people would say never put a water dish in. It is kind of a controversial debate. But with the screen lid, there wasn't too much risk of humidity. It's pretty low humidity in the place where I live anyway, so a little tiny dish on the far end of the cage wasn't going to do too much to the humidity. So I went and added it to the cage, but he didn't use the dish. He didn't find any interest in it, so I ended up removing it. And then I also bought him a little mealworm dish and a dish for salad. There's lots of different options for food. I'm pretty sure this is all from LLL Reptile. I was looking at their food options mostly because I was planning on buying my bearded dragon from them. And like I said before, they have special options where if you buy a Reptile, you can add all sorts of different types of feeders to there, and they're a lot cheaper than trying to buy feeders on their own. So I was looking at all the different options that they had. This is good to look at if you're planning on buying from LLL Reptile. As I'll show you in a later slide, they do have a huge selection of bearded dragons most all the time. And so it's not like you're going to be limited to what you can buy. You can buy any size from a baby to a small juvie to a subadult to a full-grown adult in all sorts of different colors and genetic morphs. And if you just want a normal baby, they also have those. And they're all excellently priced. None of them are overpriced at all. It's even cheaper than buying from a local pet store even. And so I was also looking at some different websites. I found that the two cheapest websites to buy dubia roaches or crickets, buydubiaroaches.com has really, really cheap dubia roaches, and Fluker's Farm has about the cheapest crickets you can find most anywhere. So if you're interested in that, those are two really excellent websites to buy dubia roaches and crickets from. Alright, so here's what I was talking about. LLL Reptile has a huge selection of baby and small bearded dragons, as well as subadults and adults. It changes constantly, so you're going to have to look on their website to see what they have. But at the time that I was buying Freddy, they had a ton. They have babies. They have babies with nips that are discounted. If they have a really big nip, it will say, like this one here, baby Hypocitrus with stub. That is a significant nip, as opposed to just a little tiny bit of the tail off would be just a nip. And so they had anything from babies to baby leatherbacks to hypos and citruses. They had trans leatherbacks, hypo leatherbacks. They even had silkies and some Italian leatherbacks going on as well. They also had lots of red baby dragons, and they just had a ton. So this is a really great website if you're looking to get just a really friendly little bearded dragon. You're not planning on breeding or anything like that. You just want to get a really nice, cute baby dragon, and you still want to have some option in colors and maybe some different morphs like hypos or leatherbacks. LLL Reptile is probably the place for you. Like I said, you'll have to check out to see what they have at the time being because it changes constantly. But they usually have a pretty big selection, and they're nice enough that you can ask them, and they'll send you a picture of all the bearded dragons of that certain category that they have. If you want to pick one out specifically, like if I wanted to pick out a baby hypo, they would send me a picture of all their little hypos that they have, and I could pick one out specifically. So it's just as personal as buying from the pet store, with an even wider selection and even cheaper prices. A baby at a pet store would be about $60. A baby from LLL Reptile is only $30. The only warning that I would give you is that their babies are really, really tiny. When they say baby, they mean like hatchling. They range from about 4.5 inches to 5.5. So they're really, really tiny. And buying a baby that small, they're not going to be as forgiving as buying say, a small bearded dragon, because they are babies. But it is doable. I bought Freddy when he was about 5.5 inches, not even 5.5, and he turned out just fine. They are just a little more susceptible to things like stress, can be more problematic, and diseases. You want to make sure their cage is clean. You want to they're really, really susceptible to dehydration, so you got to make sure you're hydrating them. So that's the only warning I'd give about babies, but especially babies as small as the ones on LOL Reptile. But I'm pretty sure you can handle it if you have all the supplies you need and you just keep on top of things. Anyone could raise a baby as long as they're prepared. So I don't want to discourage anyone from buying a baby. I just want to warn you that it'll require a little more effort, and it can be a little more risky than buying, say, a small bearded dragon. Alright, so I think the grand total of things ended up being about $320 for all of my different supplies. That included supplies and crickets and all of those supplies for the feeder insects and all sorts of things like that. So your cost could be a lot less if you're not planning on buying a bunch of insects and you're just planning on investing in a nice colony or something like that. These are just some prices of the baby bearded dragons I was looking at from LOL Reptile. I ended up going with a breeder because I was looking to buy a white bearded dragon, and even though LOL Reptile's bearded dragons, their hypos looked like they were white, they said that none of them are coming out quite as white as I wanted. So I ended up looking at breeders, and I ended up buying Freddy from a breeder, and he kind of went over my price range. I think he was $150 with shipping, which is not bad at all for a breeder's bearded dragon. That is actually a really great price, especially with shipping. But for me, that was a little over budget because I had to raise all this money by myself. But I ended up getting Freddy anyway. My mom let me get him, which was nice. She paid the extra expense. So just warning you that can be expensive, buying a bearded dragon. This is the price with the baby bearded dragon in mind from LOL Reptile. This is the price without a bearded dragon, just the supplies and the feeders and the feeder supplies. So keep in mind that it can be costly. You're also going to probably be buying a lot of feeder insects unless you invest in a colony. So that's going to be a continual expense. And then you're going to have to remember that every time your heat bulb burns out, you're going to have to buy a new heat bulb. Every 6 months, you're going to have to replace your UVB bulb because the amount of UVB coming out of there decreases over time. And at the 6-month mark, it's just not enough UVB to satisfy your dragon's needs. So you're going to have to replace it then. So you have to remember that a lot of this is a continuing cost. So bearded dragons are not the cheapest thing to buy if you just are looking for a pet. They do require a pretty large investment, and they will require continual spending of money just for overall care, overall feeding. So you want to make sure you're prepared. You want to make sure you have enough money to not only buy all your supplies, but to buy the bearded dragon that you really, really want. If you just settle for something that's less than what you're expecting, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much as a bearded dragon that may have cost more, but was really what you're looking for. So you want to make sure you have enough money going into it to buy all your supplies and the bearded dragon that you'll be the most happiest with. This is just showing some raising and spending of money for me. I had my mark. This is the final cost after buying a bunch of stuff. So as you can see, it was a lot of making a lot of money and spending it, and making a lot of money and spending it, just trying to get to that point where I could buy my bearded dragon. But yeah, I managed. I sold my old phone. That's that spike there. I did a lot of work for my neighbors and around the house. That would be that spike. Just everything. There was a lot of work put into it, especially since I was buying everything on my own accord, and I am currently unemployed. I was at this time as well. So it was pretty difficult, but I managed, and I ended up with Freddy, and I could not be happier, I will tell you that much. So it was worth it. Every single penny that I saved up and spent was definitely worth it. And so if you really want a bearded dragon, I would say go for it. Don't be daunted by how much it can cost, because everyone can make this much money. It's just money. And bearded dragons will last you a long time of happiness. And these are some of the websites I was looking at to get my information. And a lot of these are useful to you as well. I was looking a lot at Carolina Classic Dragons. They have their own YouTube series as well. They only have about 3 videos, I think, but they're pretty long videos, and they're pretty informational about different diseases, all the feeding needs, housing. There's a lot of different subjects covered in 3 videos, so I'd go check that out. This is also a nice website for looking at genetics. TheBeardedDragon.com is just a great website in general for, they also have a supplies list, they also have things for beginners and all sorts of information, and they talk about genetics. This website here, right here, is more in depth about different types of genetics. If you think you have a pretty good grasp on the basic of genetics, I would check out this website. If you're pretty new to genetics and stuff like that, I would check out this one up here. But this one has a lot more genetic morphs and stuff like that, so if you're really interested, check them out. It was a really good read. There's that website I was linking up above a couple times, beautifuldragons.com/nutrition. Sorry. Really great website for all the different things you need to know about feeding your bearded dragon and supplementing. I looked at Repcal's website, and they have a lot of good information about their products. And then thebeardeddragon.org is just great for all-around bearded dragon information. At this point, you're probably wondering, well, gee, that's a whole lot of money. Is it worth it? And I can tell you what, it's pretty worth it. Even though Freddy gave me some difficulties, and still to this day gives me some issues when it comes to feeding vegetables and stuff like that, my life would just be a lot less fun and full of love without him. As you probably heard from a lot of people, bearded dragons are kind of like the dogs of the reptile world. They're just really, really affectionate, and they love to be handled. It might not seem like it when you first get your baby, with them squirming and trying to get away and just not sitting still when they're with you and sitting still when they're alone. You might think that they don't really like to be held very much. They're just like little nollies. But I'll tell you what. Once they get used to you, they're kind of like your best friend. Freddy especially, I can just put him on my shirt, put him on my shoulder, and we'll just walk around together. He'll get comfortable, and we'll just hang out, you know? Sometimes I'll be doing my homework, and I'll go and get him, and just set him on my shoulder. And he'll sit there for a while, and then, being Freddy, he'll want to go and explore, so he'll jump off and bail on me and try and run around my room. But they are just really loving, and they're just really, really great pets. I can't wait for the day when it starts to warm up, as it's really, really snowy and cold out right now. And I can just take Freddy, and we can get in my car together and just go run around the town. He really does enjoy being out and going places, which is kind of funny. I've taken him out once when it was around October during Halloween. Pecco was having a reptile booty contest in the spirit of Halloween. So I took Freddy there, and I was thinking that he would be pretty stressed and, you know, pretty dolly colored because of being stressed. But he totally brightened right up, and he could not have had more fun. He was freezing cold, but he was bright as he could be. He just really, really enjoyed being out. And I think that's what the funniest thing about these lizards is that they have extremely distinct personalities. Like Freddy, if you ask me to describe him, I will tell you that he is an extreme diva. And he is a camera hog. And he's just extremely photogenic. From the day I got him, he was just posing for the cameras. And he really isn't afraid of anything. My dog will come up and sniff him, and he's totally fine. My guinea pig will get up in his face, and he doesn't even care. They have an extreme amount of personality, and they're just extremely loving lizards. There's nothing he likes to do more than just sit around with me and just hang out in my room. Even if he's fed up with me and wants to hang out with some distance between us, we still hang out. My favorite thing about bearded dragons is that they love to be petted. I guess that's the verb there. As you can see, just pet the heck out of him. Stroke his chin, pet his head, doesn't matter. He's just coming up here. So he's definitely worth all the expenses it took to get his house all set up properly. And I just can't wait for him to get bigger, because as he gets bigger, I know his heart will just get bigger. He's an extreme sweetheart, and I'm really, really happy to have him. Of course, the fact that he's very, very beautiful is also a perk, but if he was just a plain, gray, bearded dragon, I would be just as happy with him. That's what I really like about a lot of different types of pets, is that you know that no two are alike. You like to think that with some types of pets, you just replace it and it's like having the same one all over again. But I found that with every single type of pet, that doesn't apply at all. Even my fish have extremely distinct personalities, as weird as that might seem. I know my one fish, if I tried to replace him with another, it would be completely different than having him around. And it's the same with Freddy. No two bearded dragons are even remotely alike. You might have one that just loves to puff up at everyone and be all macho, and then you'll have ones like Freddy that like nothing more than to be scrubbed down with soap in a bath and then dried and just sleep like a little monster. So bearded dragons are just really affectionate and really great pets. Their size is also a plus. I mean, you could say it's a negative since they take up more space than, say, like a leopard gecko. But I like bigger animals. I like having an animal that I can hold and hang out with, and it's more like having like a cat or a dog or even like a ferret. Like something that has a little more meat on their bones. Just a little bit bigger. I have nothing against small animals, of course. I have my hermit crabs, which are all really tiny little guys. And I absolutely adore hamsters, and I think that that step runners are really awesome too, even though they're like tiny. They're kind of like tiny bearded dragons. They like to be held, but they're only like 6 inches when adults. So I like bearded dragons because of their size too. Getting bigger, it just means more snuggling, more dress up, just more love, more animal. And Freddy's no exception. He's really funny. Look at his little biceps. So I'd say he was worth every single penny I had to put in. But, you know, it'd be up to you. Like, it goes with what I said before. If you aren't going to be happy with the bearded dragon, then don't get it. If you don't think that you're going to like it as much if you get a gray bearded dragon as opposed to getting like a rainbow hypo like Freddy, then don't get the normal bearded dragon. Wait until you can afford a bearded dragon that you'll be happy with. Because if you go in with a bad attitude, even though bearded dragons are all got their charm and are just really, really friendly, it doesn't guarantee that you'll put as much effort and time into taking care of them as you would a bearded dragon that you thought you wanted. But then again, getting bearded dragons is just kind of like getting the common cold, kind of like what I have right now. You don't think you'll like it, you end up getting it, and they just work their charm on you. I guess the cold wasn't exactly the best analogy there, but for instance, I bought Freddy thinking that he would turn white, that he'd be a white bearded dragon. He came from his mom was a leucistic dragon, and the breeder told me that these two dragons have the best possibility of turning white as they get older. They're already pretty pale, so I was really happy, and so I went with Freddy. I liked him. He was the smaller of the two, and he was really, really cute. But as he got older, he got a ton of color. And even though he wasn't the white dragon he wanted, he turned out to be something even greater than I could have imagined. So even though I say don't get a bearded dragon if it's not what you want, if you can't find anything else, and you think you're just going to be happy, then go ahead and get it. All bearded dragons have super unique personalities and are just super lovable, no matter what color they are. So if you can't find any other bearded dragon and you're not happy with the selections that are available to you,